me know when the camera's on. So hello, Studio 108 Seekers and Sages. It is us, Leah and Tracy here.
Is it blurry?
Chit chat. I think it works well for me.
Okay.
So
okay.
Maybe
it's a podcast, technically.
Technically, right. So, you can be a little blurry.
Okay.
Well, here we are at the studio, which is now open. So we're really excited. And we're excited to bring you all of the good things that we've been dreaming about. That's what happens when, something comes to fruition. All the stuff that you've been hoping for and wishing for is right there.
You know what I love about this vibe?
What?
Is you're all white and light and I'm black and dark. Like the light and the dark. It's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there we go. The polarity is well represented.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Leah, first thing I want to talk about is our first yoga class together. Do you remember?
It was for my 8th or 9th birthday, and I think I wanted to go. And you took us to get pedicures, and then we went to Cleveland Yoga, which at the time, is this echoey in here? Have you recorded a podcast in here before?
This is the first podcast in here.
Okay, I feel like there's an echo, so we'll have to see how the sound works.
Right, well, we're just gonna do it. There's a rug coming, there's other fabric coming, absorb some sounds, which is, like focus in for me.
It was at the Hamptons, which is not called the Hamptons anymore. It's like Vantage or something, apartments across from Beechwood Mall. And this is where Cleveland Yoga was, and it was a carpeted room. And was it Parker's class?
I don't think so. I think it was Diana's.
Diana Van Antonio. Wow.
Yeah.
I know. I follow her. She's really cool.
She's really cool.
Yeah.
And so are you.
Yay.
Kind of. So we had our toes painted matching colors. Mm-hmm. And that's what you wanted to do for the day, to have a moment.
Yeah, God knows why I wanted to go to yoga.
No idea why I wanted to spend the day with you.
But I was not much of a mover. Like
True.
I was more of a cat. I think Erin and I joke about this, that we were like indoor. We weren't necessarily indoor cat kids because we liked being outside, but neither of us were very athletic.
No. Neither of you were very they were very floppy, low-toned kids.
Yeah.
And neither one of you were very embodied. Reading.
We like to read,
play House on the Prairie.
Like play games. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we just want to tell that story. But there's another story about us doing yoga together. Like, do you remember? I do. I was like, it was a lot.
Well, I know what story you're gonna say. And you told me that if I was uncomfortable during class, I could just lay in Shavasana. You said that was okay. Yeah. And they always give the caveat in power yoga classes that if it's too hard, then always find your child's pose, come back to breath. Breath is yoga. Right. Yoga is unity and oneness. In fact, nothing to do with asana. So I took that very literally when you said that I could just lay down.
And you did, you're like, but that wasn't the part that was so.
Did we skip around? We didn't even tell the story.
Okay, tell the story.
So we went to yoga.
I think it was in Nishkama, right here.
And I just laid down and slept.
You cried.
Oh, that one. There were many times when I cried. It was so uncomfortable and hot. Oh. So, you know what's funny? I feel like I get that from my dad's side of the family. It's like that, feeling of being hot. It was just so uncomfortable. Yeah, I don't remember. But I feel like I get that from my dad's side of the family. Just not wanting to be in that hotness and the heat. It was just uncomfortable. So yeah, I cried.
Yeah.
I cried. But then
that didn't stop me from doing my yoga. I was like this, doing my yoga.
But what was funny though is one time I just slept during class at Cleveland Yoga.
Yeah.
And I remember Tammy or one of the teachers kicking me or something. Which in retrospect, why would you pay for me just to come? It was just free childcare. I was old, I don't even know. You just paid for me. I think you really wanted me. You know what it reminds me of? When I was a therapist.
I was a stage mom.
No. When I was a therapist, I feel like so many parents just want to take their kids to therapy because they know that the kid needs therapy, but the kid doesn't really want to be there. They're not engaged in the process. So I feel like it was very much like that.
Yeah.
You really wanted me to reap the benefits of yoga, but I didn't want to, or I wasn't ready, or
You probably just weren't ready.
yeah.
Because here's the killer. Yoga was never really her thing, because it was hard to be so embodied. But what Leah actually ended up embracing was barre, which I think is so much harder because you're in the deeper core for like really concentrated periods of time. So that's what we want to talk about today. Like Leah, is not going to be teaching yoga here, but she is a killer barre and Pilates teacher. And yeah, you are. And I want to talk about that. Like I want to talk about why people might be interested in barre and Pilates, what it brought to your life. What folks can expect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, so I have to talk about Stacy.
Yes.
Because Stacy DeGennaro Downing.
Stacy.
So you were friends with her through like Lululemon, I think, or the yoga community, and she had a barre and Pilates studio in Fairlawn. And she just like really embraced me with open arms and just let me come, and I made a commitment to come daily or whatever it was.
Leah made a commitment to come, but she felt badly. So then you started cleaning the studio once a week for her too in exchange.
Because she was so generous. She was so generous with me.
Yeah.
Just like so generous. And I think probably she saw that I struggled. As if it wasn't obvious. And she was she just embraced me with open arms. And I think there I just got so inspired, and she inspired me so much. And the studio and just being in that environment, I don't know what it was.
There were so many of the women too, like Kelly and Shannon.
Yeah.
Who else? Brittany.
Just like everyone.
Mary. Oh my gosh, Mary.
Nikki, Lauren Colombo.
Like so many of the women that were.
Shelly, I don't want to forget anyone. So, but yeah.
And they were not necessarily my age. They were like maybe 10 years younger than me. So it was like that gap kind of.
They were just, yeah. So
they all embraced her.
And I was so lost. I didn't have friends, and it was just like a hard time.
You were 19 or 18?
Maybe 19, 20, because I think I was living at Akron, and then I moved back.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, Stacy really inspired me.
Yes.
And I just, like to this day, like I just adore her, and I love her classes, and she is so smart and such a good teacher, but she teaches this method of Pilates called stop Pilates, or I guess this is what she was trained under. She kind of like fuses all sorts of modalities now, but
she has such a long teaching history in Pilates.
Yeah, she's amazing. But I was like, I want to be a Pilates teacher, and I want to teach barre. So I think I started with anti-gravity training, which was aerial silk training, and that was like, talk about like, it just, I was a fish out of water. Is that what it's called? I was just in an environment where I was so uncomfortable in my body, and I just remember that training, even just like feeling nauseous and dizzy. Partly that was the nature of what it was, because you're inverting and all of that. But then even just like the other girls just like picked up on stuff, and I felt like I didn't, because I didn't know how to be in my body.
I mean, I feel like it had a very therapeutic effect.
Over the years.
Of bringing, like yoga does, of taking someone who is rather scattered and unorganized and kind of bouncing around and not really knowing who they are, and whether that's because like developmentally and family history and stuff that you had to deal with, or because the kids are little and you've lost a sense of who you are, or because you're working a corporate job and it's sort of eaten your life. Like there are so many reasons that we can kind of become disconnected from ourselves. And that whole process, and I mean, Stacy's the girl, man, she really loved you right through it. But that whole process through barre and Pilates, like put you inside your skin.
It really helped me like get into my body. And then I did yoga throughout all of that. So I think like, because before I got introduced to barre and Pilates, I was doing yoga more frequently. But yoga, for someone who's kind of hypermobile and lacks like that like
that capacity to engage.
Yeah, and like that yang, like I'm so yin, so like that yang, Barre Pilates really brought. And I almost feel like there's such a good union because Barre Pilates, well, and I guess all of these can take various shapes, but it was such like an anchor for my yoga practice because it allowed me to strengthen and really learn how to stabilize the muscles so that in yoga I could be more safe about my stretches and the things that I was doing there.
100%. 100%. That's worth swinging back around. But I'm going to ask you this first.
Okay.
I want to ask you one more time, like, tell me about like the therapeutic impact. Like, what came along with that? What kind of personal development qualities did you find? Because I think it's really important. And you've been a therapist and you've gone to therapy, so like you can pinpoint.
So it's the personal empowerment piece, and it's that like Pilates. It's so much in like these lower chakras, right? So it's that even like the cueing that we use, like it's always like lift your pelvic floor, engage your transverses. It's all in those lower chakras. So I think pulling you back into your body,
Grounded, anchored.
so grounded, so anchored. Yeah.
And strong. Like you were strong in a way that like I can't touch.
I will say Barre Pilates opened up the fitness world for me where I feel like I can lift weights really, really safely and like build my strength really, really safely. Like I started like an at-home weightlifting program, which I would feel, in general, kind of, I would say be cautious of that because you're really not supposed to be lifting. I don't know, like when you're learning new things and the space to be injured can be a little bit, especially when you're at home and you don't have anyone to kind of hold your hand. But I felt really safe doing that because of the
like you knew where to put your bones in the body and how to stabilize.
It's the body
your
awareness.
Stabilize that. The body awareness is huge. How about like I saw such a big difference in terms of confidence in your personal presence and the way you walk into a room and how you stand and introduce yourself and sort of like from the guts and ownership of saying your name. Like, Leah took 200-hour teacher training, which was not necessarily at the beginning or maybe in the middle of what's become this journey for the past 7 years, 8 years, something like that, right? Like 6, 7, yeah, 6. So like that was sort of in the middle, but you've matured so much, and I think like that physical activity has
well, I think
there's structure.
I think there's like we hold a lot of shame in our womb, and even just as women in the society that we live in, so many of us have just so much shame around this area, whether it's like feeling like there's belly fat or just like shame in the womb and like sexual trauma that so many of us carry or else like have carried from past generations. And I think like being able to really inhabit this space of your body has been really powerful.
Yeah.
And for people who struggle with like eating issues, I'll just use that term. I won't even go as far to say eating disorders, just eating issues and being able to be aware of what's going on in your gut. I feel like Pilates has really helped that, like pull the awareness down versus always being up here.
I guess I just want, thank you. I wanted to like bridge that because I don't want it to look like, yoga is the place for the more spiritual practices. Like a lot of that psychological development happens through our other workout activities. Like nothing that happens here is just in the physical.
Totally.
It all is part of our mental game in life, all part of our spiritual journey.
Sure.
It's all just such.
And Barre and Pilates are both endurance workouts.
Okay, so that's what we want to talk about. What exactly is going to happen in a Barre class? What will happen in a Pilates class? How are they different from each other? What are the target benefits?
Yeah. So should I go into like the history of so people kind of know how they're different?
Just like not forever.
No, but it's kind of interesting.
Okay, definitely.
I'll just do a little bit. So Pilates comes from this guy named Joseph Pilates, who was born in the 1800s, and he was a really sickly child, and he had asthma. and he started like physically training, and he became a gymnast and a boxer, and he studied like ancient Eastern movement practices, yoga, Tai Chi, stuff like that. And then he studied Western practices like gymnastics and all this stuff. And he developed this this way of strengthening the body, and it started with mat work. And then he was, I think he was like a German alien something prior to World War I or during World War I, where he lived in Britain, and he worked in a hospital. And while he was there, he developed this system for training the body for patients who were bedridden, which is kind of how there's a machine called the Pilates Reformer, and even the Cadillac, which are two larger machines, and that's kind of where this came from, because he was rehabbing people who were, in hospital beds.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So then he kind of continues like developing this program called Pilates, and he meets his wife, and he immigrates to the US, and now he's in New York City, and he really feels like what I learned, because I was kind of reviewing the history, he wrote a letter to Kennedy basically saying Pilates needs to be a requirement, in schools, because he really felt like it could heal like all, physical ailments. He drank his own Kool-Aid. He really believed in himself.
That's important to do.
It's a testament for like truly believing in yourself, man.
You have to drink it.
Which his shit was good.
Right.
So yeah, it was good Kool-Aid. But anyways, so in New York City, I think a lot of like people in the dance world started training under him to
get stronger.
To get stronger for their work,
because it's all from core.
Yeah. So then there were all these kind of like with yoga, there's all these lineages and different branches. So then similarly with Pilates, there's this more contemporary approach, there's more of a classical approach. So I'm trained through stock Pilates, which is one of the more contemporary approaches. So where in traditional Pilates, most of the work he did was with an imprinted lumbar spine. So you're giving yourself like a posterior tilt because you're lengthening through that lower back. So you're keeping that imprinted spine. Whereas in stock Pilates, they want you to strengthen from a neutral pelvis, because if you look at like biomechanics and just like the way your spine is shaped, that's where you're going to be strongest for your core is in a neutral pelvis. So we do imprinting in stock Pilates, but it's a little bit more mindful of that. Like breath principles and all of that, are kind of similar across the board.
So if I come to a class, what's going to happen?
It's just.
Do I get a Cadillac? It's like Mary Kay, you get a pink Cadillac. No, what's the Cadillac or the machines?
So
there's something different. The reformer is different than a math class.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
We're calling the classes Pilates Sculpt, right?
Yeah, so they're all just going to be a little different.
Okay.
And I think that as I go, I might be a little bit more, I don't know, I might develop more of a class structure that is kind of consistent throughout.
Right.
But I just like with my barre classes, for example, I like adding in cardio. Like I like adding in a little bit of, Pilates stuff and a little bit of barre stuff and just kind of merging everything.
And being creative.
Yeah. So I feel like, I guess the difference here is that barre is going to have a little bit more cardio.
Okay.
It will be a faster pace.
Okay.
Pilates will be slower. We will not use a bar. We'll be more on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the barre piece, just if someone doesn't know what barre is, let's just.
So it was inspired from like the way ballerinas train at the barre. So, we do a lot of things with different kind of like rotations in the body. So we'll work the hip in internal rotation, external rotation. We'll work the hips parallel. It's very form over function, and there's small movements, and it's low weight, high reps, so it's endurance based. Yeah.
And it's core.
And it's core.
I think one of the nicest things, because like even right now I'm doing a summer 200 intensive and going through anatomy with folks, and like explaining that there are superficial muscles that are movers, like there's a muscle that moves your, you bend your elbow.
And then there's a stabilizer.
And then there are stabilizers, which are deeper. And when you go lift weights in the gym, when you do those kinds of things, you're using the mover muscles. And when you look at people and you say, aren't they fit? You're seeing the mover muscles. But underneath that, what's more important actually to us staying mobile as we age, preventing falls, maintaining safe joints, safety in the joint and the wear and tear of the joint and the overstretch of the joint, are the stabilizer muscles, which are the deep muscles that you can't see. So one of the things that is so powerful about Barre Pilates,
you're really strengthening the deep stabilizer muscles.
Yeah,
for sure. And you feel it. And you feel it in a different way. It's a different type of burn. It's a different sensation. And for the most part, it's not like a circuit class. I guess sometimes it can be, but we focus on one body part and then we move on.
Yeah, so you kind of fatigue one out to get into different layers of how muscle functions. So I feel like that's really important, especially to us yogis, because we love the flexibility, and that's what we want to feel when we come to our practice. It's super easy to go through a vinyasa class and fake strength. How do I know? Because I do it. Because I'm just as lazy as the rest of us. Like my muscles don't necessarily want to fire and show up for life on the planet either. So there's no way.
Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth? But it's like in a Barre or a Pilates class, you can't hide. Like the actions. You can, but man, you get into those deep stabilizing muscles. Nothing else that I found really ensures that you do that. It just takes so much diligence. So it's a beautiful complement to yoga.
It really is. And it's not like about saying one form of movement is better than the other, but I think that it does enhance your yoga practice. And I also think there's this element with Barre and Pilates that, you're holding things for a long time. So there's this like uncomfortability that comes from it. And then the ability to kind of breathe through that and be present with it and be okay with it and know that it will pass. There's this element that like you get confident from it. And
get a little badass. Yeah. And I think if you are someone who practices yoga who hasn't quite yet nailed your forearm stand, your handstand, hasn't quite got the confidence to shoot back from crow to chatta, like those kinds of things require a lot of core, and that's where we get it.
I can't do it. I can do a handstand against a wall.
Yeah, but do you work at it?
Yeah. No, not really. Right. No, I have other things to do. I could do that. I could work at it more. Right. What was I going to say though? Oh, the balance.
But the stabilizing of the handstand happens through the core and through the stabilizing muscles of the shoulders. And
and balance.
Yeah.
It's so good at training balance, which is one of the first things that goes when we age. And your ability to kind of have that body awareness and be able to find your equilibrium is so important for fall prevention.
100%. All right, so Leah, I've got to ask because, I'm over 50. I've got to ask for my girls.
What's it like to be over 50? I already have age anxiety and I'm 25.
What's it going to be like? Are you going to be like, don't be too rough on my girls?
No, but I also...
Is it all levels for real, or you...
I will look who's in the room and we'll kind of cater. But the thing is about it is you can always come out of things and come back in.
Yeah.
So if you can be okay with that and just be like gentle and compassionate with yourself around that, then...
Which is the yoga.
Right.
Yeah, it's your yoga practice showing up.
Should we talk about the mirrors or just not save that for another day?
I don't know.
Just like
they called me back today. People actually get mirrors.
Because I don't know if some of your yogi people might be intimidated by the mirrors, but talk about a practice in like radical self-acceptance.
Ooh, I know what she means. Yes. So sometimes you're sitting there with your hands on the bars and you're looking yourself straight in the eye and you're feeling like it's hard.
Or just to like look at your body in the mirror like that.
Yeah. So it is radical self-acceptance. Oh my gosh, we could go on for weeks.
That's a whole other thing. But should we tell them, because I almost get worried that people will think, oh, there's gonna be mirrors in a yoga studio and be turned off by that, so
Right.
what are we doing?
Okay, so first we're gonna put the mirrors up when we get organized for the mirrors. The guys finally called back today, so I'll get back with them. We're gonna have shears over so that we can tie the shears and flip them up for bar when we need them, and then drop shears down. So
Because the mirrors were a point of
conversation
between us. Yeah.
Legit.
Which I totally understand why.
No one wants to have mirrors in a yoga studio. You don't want to look at a down dog underneath and see your big butt, or little butt for that matter, or everybody else's butts.
In terms of watching form, and for Barre, it's so important. For Barre, I want to have some cardio based classes, and I thought of the name.
Good.
Some dancey. I'm not really a dancer, but slight quasi dance, quasi hip classes.
Quasi dance, quasi hip. Sign up now.
I have so many ideas.
Okay, she has a lot of ideas. We're gonna wrap it so that we can save more ideas for another day.
Okay.
Get all of your ideas on the schedule. We'll build it out. This is what's so exciting about thinking up something like this. But for today, do you get it? Are you on board? What Barre is, what Pilates is, why you might want to try them out. You got it? Who Leah is, how I am, how we started practicing yoga together.
They're both. What's so interesting
of us. You can't really see it here. Come and you'll see it on the little hallway to the back.
They're both really focused on your spine.
Yeah.
And being able to have mobility for your spine.
Right. And they're both workouts that are all encompassing.
They're full body workouts.
Body, mind, soul kinds of things, which
they
is why we call
are.
it, Studio 108 Body, Mind, Soul.
Yeah, they're sure. And yet with both, you can also lose the benefits by tuning out.
Yes. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. Definitely. We want to use our practices to tune in, to come into our
Yeah. If you can, or if it's a day that it's just you need to tune out, then
I need to just sort of
this feels nice.
I know, it's rose quartz. It's self-love, honey. Rose quartz is self-love.
I love it.
Okay. Are we good?
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.
Oh, look for Leah on the schedule.
Yeah.
Schedule's on the website, studio108.net. And we hope to see you soon. Namaste.
How long is that?
I don't know. You're still talking. It's still going.